We do have on the line right now, we have, let's have a look, Hamja Ahsan. Now, he is the brother of Talha Ahsan, who was extradited to the US a few weeks ago. First of all, Hamja, thank you very much for waiting, and thank you very much for being so patient with us.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Now, I believe your brother has been in touch with the family recently. How is he?
Talha, we just got a letter after 5 weeks of hearing nothing. We didn't get a phone call or letter, and he's in solitary confinement with no human contact for 23 hours a day, which he's never been in before, and it doesn't happen in Britain. He's accepting his fate, but the letter we got from the US prison is dated 23rd of October, so we don't know how he's been in all this time. It's like he's even showed concern for Gary McKinnon, and he was oblivious that Gary McKinnon wasn't extradited. It's obviously very difficult and painful for my family. It's been hell and agony. We have no idea what's happening. You know, you can't even see your own son. I can't see my own brother. He used to call home every day, and we haven't heard his voice.
Hamja, I know this is difficult for you and the family, but just take us through what your brother Talha was accused of.
Talha was accused of having marginal association with a series of websites from 1997 to about 2002, which were about the conflicts in Bosnia, Chechnya, Afghanistan. A US indictment alleges that they provided support to rebels in Chechnya and other places. That's the allegation. Talha denies all the charges and just wanted the right to a fair UK trial, and that's what we were trying to fight for over 6 years.
Do you think there was enough evidence there to try him here in the UK?
Bizarrely, they said there was insufficient evidence to charge people with these things in the UK, and the problem with the extradition treaty, as David Blunkett changed it in 2003, meant that the US didn't actually have to provide any evidence that could be challenged in the court of law. So there hasn't been such evidence so far. And anyway, since he's a British citizen who's never been to the US, most of the evidence and witnesses and everything and activity would have taken place here. So why doesn't Britain charge people in their own countries? It makes no sense, logically.
It's been a few weeks now, hasn't it, since he was extradited? Do you feel due process of law was followed leading up to his extradition?
There were a number of things the law was bad to begin with, so removing the requirement of evidence that David Blunkett did, and so the extradition law, it gave Britain less protection than even Lithuania, France doesn't extradite its citizens and stuff, so it started off with a bad piece of law, and then it started affecting loads of British citizens like Christopher Tappin, Gary McKinnon, Richard O'Dwyer, all these people. So the law was bad to begin with, and there was a number of other factors. For example, the United Nations Special Rapporteur of Torture, Juan Mendes, he wrote to the British government. He says, you'll be complicit in torture if you send these British citizens over to solitary confinement where they could die in, 7-foot cells with no human contact. And she chose not to listen to him. I know there's a European court process, but 150 academics and 26 human rights organisations, including Human Rights First, disagreed with the European court judgment because it said it gave a green light to abuse and torture in American prisons. So.
But of course, Hamja, you have to accept that your brother was detained in this country for a very, very long time.
Yeah, amongst the longest time in British history.
In history, he wasn't charged with anything in this country.
Yeah.
But are you not happy for him that at least he's not being detained for an indefinite period? At least he's going through some sort of process that appears to be moving.
He's been put into solitary confinement and might be put into solitary confinement for years on end. I don't feel, 50% of prison suicides take place in solitary confinement. And I don't think in this country we're aware of how bad some American prison conditions is. Amnesty International USA and United Nations Chief on Torture, they both weren't even allowed to visit American prisons. I don't feel optimistic about these things. And then in America you have a plea bargaining system, which doesn't happen in Britain, meaning you are put in really heavy charges and you just negotiate with the lesser sentence, rather than have a place where you can actually have a fair hearing. So no, and you know, Talha's going to spend a year in solitary confinement. You know, might mentally break him down. He's also a vulnerable person with Asperger's syndrome, like the guy in My Name Is Khan. And you know, my family can't see him. I can't see him. He can't talk. It's quite terrifying. And we have no certainty of how he is, or you know.
Your brother's extradition to the US. This is after your brother's extradition to the US. Home Secretary blocked the Gary McKinnon extradition on the grounds that he was seriously ill and there was a real risk of him attempting suicide if he was sent to the US. How do you feel about that decision?
I'm very happy for Gary McKinnon and his family because she doesn't have to go through the same nightmare that my family are going through. On the other hand, the decision, which was taken purely on health grounds, Talha had an assessed suicide risk, which was there in his public, European papers, and he also had Asperger's syndrome, like Gary. So it's quite a brutal and cruel double standards. And the depressing thing is, Theresa May, anyone can empathise with the agony my family are going through, and Theresa May boasted about this at the Conservative Party conference. She was saying, isn't it great to say goodbye to these people? It was like a number one, gloating in the agony she's caused and suffering she's caused to my family. It's just sick.
Do you think part of the problem, Hamja, was that your brother was lumped together with other suspects, including Abu Hamza? Do you think that was part of the problem?
The problem that was a problem, but sadly that was a Home Office press strategy, was to make up this cheap, misleading trick soundbite, Abu Hamza and the others, confusing three very, very different cases. And then Abu Hamza's, a notorious media bogeyman. No one wants to be lumped together with him. And then Theresa May keeps repeating it again and again and again, Abu Hamza and the others. So when principled supporting MPs like Caroline Lucas and Jeremy Corbyn ask her a question in Parliament, she just said about Talha and Barbara specifically, she just avoids the issue and says Abu Hamza and the others, Abu Hamza and the others. And that's what she said in the Conservative Party conference. So she says she effectively have got a way of sending British citizens to torture conditions and detaining them for the longest period of time. So, I'm sure there's a lot of people who aren't fooled by these meaningless sound bites. And then all these, some right-wing tabloids just repeat the Home Office line and don't look further, sadly.
Do you think, and do you feel that race had something to do with this? On one hand, you had Gary McKinnon, similar type of charges, similar type of medical condition. Do you think race had an issue here?
There's a very strong case that all British citizens who are Muslim and non-white aren't treated the same way. And I do accept Gary's family have been through hell, and I do accept loads of other white British citizens have been extradited, but none of them have been held in pre-trial solitary confinement for the length of time the Muslims have. And they're not, also the Daily Mail was a pivotal factor in Gary McKinnon's case, because they said had this British Justice for British Citizens campaign, and then even though Talha's a British citizen too, they referred to him and Baba Ahmed as other unwanted guests.
Okay. Hamja, stay with us for a bit, because on the line we're joined by Anita Kapoor, who's a Conservative councillor for Ealing Council in London. Anita, thank you very much for joining us at short notice.
That's all right.
Now, we were just talking about the case of Talha Ahsan, the brother of Hamja Ahsan. Hamja is on the line at the moment, and he believes that race may have played a part in the decision-making process for the Home Secretary.
These are my opinions. First of all I can say is that anybody who is a British citizen, and I really feel that they should be, they should have a trial here with a British judge, no matter what colour, creed or race. That is my view on this. So, however, I know that the brother feels very adamantly about his own brother, and there's an interest, but however, terrorists are a totally different ball game.
Well, he has never been convicted of terrorism. He's never been charged of terrorism.
Being convicted, being suspected...
even the courts in this country...
There has been evidence...
even the courts in this country said that there was not enough evidence to convict Talha Ahsan.
Whether there was not enough evidence is a totally... If they had said there was no evidence, that's a totally different ballgame. And secondly, we have to protect the citizens of this country. We've had a terrorist attack. In India, they've had a terrorist attack, 9/11 America. It is not acceptable. And obviously we have to protect our public. Even if it's suspected, there still has to be protection. Yes, where I agree with the brother is, isn't British justice good enough? Aren't we intelligent enough? Don't we have the resources? I'm sorry, we have one of the best intelligence in the world. So this person should have been, what should I say, had a trial here, then having to be extradited.
Well, we have a situation with Gary McKinnon. He admitted to hacking into sensitive computers.
That's a totally different ballgame.
Well, he had said that he had done what he was accused of, but he wasn't extradited.
Not a terrorist. When it comes to protecting the public, the innocent public, I'm afraid it's a totally different ballgame.
Well, some people might argue that, the reason he wasn't accused of terrorism was because he's not a Muslim.
That is totally nonsense. And I think, I am sick and tired, and everybody else is, about this Islamic phobia. Unfortunately, it's not our fault that the terrorists in 9/11, the terrorists in Mumbai, the terrorists here were of a particular religious pathway. And I am sick and tired of people shoving in my face.
Oh, okay, Anita, stay with this.
Nation is.
Okay, I'll give you a chance to come back in a moment. Anita, stay with us for a bit because Keith Vaz has kindly joined us on the line, chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee. Keith, we're talking to Anita Kapoor from Ealing. She's a Conservative councillor. Do you agree with what she's just said there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what Anita was saying. I've just come on the line, so you need to remind me.
Yeah, she was talking about the fact that, she's sick and tired of people saying that, just because I'm a Muslim, I'm being accused of terrorism. She says she's sick and tired of people using that card.
Well, I don't think people are using that card. I don't think that anyone who is involved in the current issues has ever used that card. I don't think Barbara Ahmed used that card. And certainly Talha Ahsan has not used it, so I'm not sure where that comes from. Gary McKinnon certainly hasn't, because he's not a Muslim.
Yeah. Anita, do you want to respond to that? Because Keith Vaz clearly doesn't believe that's the case.
Well, Keith came in quite a little later into the conversation.
That's right.
It was instigated by yourself and the brother of this person, saying that it's because he's a Muslim.
No, I said there are some people who feel
have been made, and it is not because he's a Muslim. It's because he is suspected of terrorist attacks. And had he been non-Muslim of any other creed, the decision would be the same.
Keith?
Who are we talking about?
Sorry, we're talking about Talha Ahsan. He was the chap that was extradited from Britain to the US, and we were speaking to his brother Hamja Ahsan earlier on. I do apologise, you came into the debate quite late.
Sorry, I didn't hear the conversation. Look, the situation regarding Barbara Ahmed and Talha Ahsan is quite different from Abu Hamza, for example. Barbara Ahmed and Talha Ahsan should have been given the same treatment as anyone else, and the Home Secretary, in our view, should really have considered their case. They were extradited to the United States because of a treaty that was signed by the last government. Unfortunately, the treaty is not a fair one. It's not a level playing field, which means that those who go to America, it's much easier to extradite someone to America than it is from an American citizen to be extradited to the United Kingdom. Now, we have said that. Experts have said it, experts in extradition, and I only had wished that before these two men had gone to America, that their case could have been examined and they could have been tried in this country in the same way as Gary McKinnon could be tried in this country.
So do you believe that Theresa May, she got it wrong?
The problem is, well, she changed her decision after they had gone, and really they were saying, both of them, that they wish to be tried in this country. That's quite reasonable. What Theresa May has now introduced is a forum bar. So a British judge will be able to choose whether they should be tried here or tried in the United States. And that's what we should have had in all these cases.
Okay, Keith, stay with us for a bit longer because I do want to get your view on Abu Qatada as well, which was going to be our main talking point. But just coming back to you, Anita, do you think Theresa May, she got it wrong when she made the decision to send Talha Ahsan to America?
I think she was limited by the policies and the agreement that was made. However, I do feel that anybody who is a British citizen, and that by that I mean people who are born here, should be tried in this country. Those who are not born here, even though they're British citizens, however, if they, crimes against the state, crimes against the people of the state should be deported to whatever country they came from.
So you're agreeing that she did get it wrong?
I'm not saying she got it wrong. I think her hands were tied.
All right, okay. Thank you. That's Anita Kapoor. Let's go back to Keith. Keith, one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you today was the Jordanian terror suspect Abu Qatada has been freed on bail after winning the latest stage of his legal fight to avoid deportation to Jordan. If you look at the facts on the ground, the European court had ruled he could be sent to Jordan, but a British judge has said he won't face a fair trial over there. Do you agree?
No, I think he should be deported to Jordan, and that's the best place for him to be tried. King Abdullah II is coming over next week, and we hope that we'll be able to persuade him to do the one thing that the British judges want him to do, which is change the Jordanian criminal code. They need to give sufficient assurances to the judges that Abu Qatada will not be tortured, and evidence that's gained by torture will not be used. But I hope very much that the king will be able to do that for us.
Well, Keith, if you look at Jordan today, we know torture is illegal in Jordan. However, it remains widespread. According to a report by Amnesty International, intelligence agents in Jordan frequently use torture to extract confessions from terror suspects. Common tactics include beating, sleep deprivation, extended solitary confinement, and physical suspension. It doesn't have a very good record, does it?
Well, it does have a much better record than Amnesty has suggested, because they have given assurances to a court that they will not do this and they will not obtain evidence. So I think that was sufficient. The courts have asked for more. So what we now need to do is we need to see whether the king is prepared to change the criminal code. And if he's prepared to do that, that will remove the last bar for the removal of Abu Hamza to Jordan. It's costing the taxpayer an absolutely huge amount of money to keep him in the country. And where there is another country that wants to try him, we should allow them to do so.
That's a very good point, because the Home Secretary has described herself as being powerless, despite the fact that all political parties and authorities in this country are united in their desire to deport this man. Should the Home Secretary accept the judiciary's decision and move on, rather than waste any more resources on this man?
I think we should not be wasting any resources. We have to do it at the moment, of course, because we are a parliamentary democracy and we believe in the rule of law. But I think it is a lot of money, £5 million for surveillance. The legal aid bill has come to £1 million. It's been going on for 7 years. It's a farce. I think people are all fed up about it, and I think they want it resolved. And I think both government and opposition are fully in support of this.
Keith, let me get your view on Talha Ahsan, one of the men that was deported to the US a few weeks ago. His brother Hamja is on the line at the moment.
I think I've given you my view.
You have?
My view is that he ought to have been tried here. And I spoke to Talha Ahsan on a video link from Parliament to the prison that he was in. And I don't see why he couldn't have been tried here. And Babar Ahmed couldn't have been tried here. And, of course, the Home Secretary has now changed the whole rules, allowing people to go through a forum bar. Now, if only that had happened before, then that would be different for him. It's up to us now to make sure that that is changed as soon as possible.
But of course, that doesn't help the family of Talha Ahsan. He's been...
No, it doesn't, and they've campaigned very strongly for him. But I think what it does do, if we do manage to change it, is that it'll make their case stronger. He remains a British citizen, and this is the country where he should have been tried in. And I think that applies to other people in that position. We need to have a British judge deciding on the best course of action, not a British judge just signing away people's rights because of an extradition that was signed that was very unfair. My committee has made this point many, many times. Not the first time we've said this. We've made it under successive governments. I'm sorry that the previous Home Secretary, Alan Johnson, did not do what we wanted him to do, which was to renegotiate the treaty.
But Keith, the fact still,
successive government.
Keith, the fact still remains that Talha Ahsan is still a British citizen. Surely the British government shouldn't be washing its hands off Talha Ahsan.
Absolutely, they should not, because he should be given the same support from consular officials in America as an American citizen would have got in this country. You're absolutely right.
Okay, Keith, listen, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Hamja Ahsan is still with us on the line. Hamja, do you take any heart from what Keith Vaz has just said there?
Keith Vaz has always been supportive, and as he said, he talked to my brother in prison as well via a video link, and he just makes perfect, rational, reasonable sense, which I'm sure most people would agree with.
Keith Vaz has also said that you and your family and your friends have campaigned long and hard.
Yes.
Does that still continue?
Yeah, we continue to campaign for Talha, to make sure these things aren't forgotten. I mean, it was disgraceful how Theresa May boasted about the agony, saying, I'm glad to say goodbye. He's still your citizen, and the first duty of a government is to protect, its own citizens, and it's like Theresa May's just got a long track record of, double standards and, slightly racist policies. She removed the right of a British Somalian citizen's British citizenship recently.
But of course, she would deny that, wouldn't she?
Yeah, of course she'd deny it. I wish, the only thing I didn't take heart from with Keith Vaz is that said he didn't trust Amnesty International, and I do trust Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch far more than I do MPs who have their own careers to think about sometimes too.
All right. Hamja, listen, thank you for making time for us. I know you've been on the line for quite a while.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Please play My Name is Khan song one day too for the too.
Why not? Why not? Thank you. That's Hamja Ahsan, the brother of Talha Ahsan, who was extradited to the US a few weeks ago.